Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Kevin Hogan. A growing list of states are in legal trouble for not handing over their voter information. The Justice Department is now suing 4 more states. And the Treasury is stepping in after investigators say COVID relief money meant for children was stolen and sent abroad. What's changing now? Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy demands that New York adhere to federal regulations on commercial driver's licenses. He threatens to pull over $70 million in federal highway funding if the state fails to comply. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem provides updates on the Trump administration's border security efforts. Hear her keynote speech at a border security symposium. 2 lawsuits targeting Wisconsin's congressional map advance today. This as newly formed 3-judge panels meet for the first time. Historic flooding in Washington state has left families stranded and homes destroyed. How the heavy rain is just wreaking havoc on the Pacific Northwest. Does the Make America Healthy Again lifestyle bring health benefits? A groundbreaking first-hand investigation into this has some shocking, irrefutable findings. We hear from the man who tried it.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Hi, more states are being sued by the Justice Department over their voting records. The Justice Department has filed lawsuits against Colorado, Hawaii, Massachusetts, and Nevada. That's for failing to provide their voting registrations to the department. The DOJ said the Attorney General has the legal authority to demand statewide voter registries and ensure proper voter registration and voter list maintenance. Colorado argues the Trump administration does not have the legal right to request the information, and Massachusetts said the department did not provide meaningful justification for the request. A lawsuit was also filed against Fulton County, Georgia, over 2020 election records. So far, the Justice Department has filed 18 lawsuits against states for failing to comply with such requests. The U.S. Treasury is tightening financial reporting rules for money service businesses. Secretary Scott Bessent announced the move today following a major fraud scandal in Minnesota's social services system. The Treasury will issue a geographic targeting order to ensure illegal activity is reported to its Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, known as FinCEN. It will also increase security on funds sent to areas of concern, including Somalia. In an ex-post, Bessent said the process will help investigators follow the money. At least 77 people have been charged in COVID relief fraud case, mainly from Somalia community. They are also accused of stealing funds meant to feed school children. Bessent said the fraud cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. Some of that money was sent to Somalia through money service businesses instead of banks. The Treasury already has personnel investigating these businesses, and CINFEN will soon issue formal notices of investigation. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy spoke to reporters today to demand that New York State comply with federal regulations on commercial driver's licenses. Duffy called New York the worst offender, saying more than half of the state's CDLs have been issued illegally.
53% of New York's non-domiciled CDLs were issued unlawfully or illegally. Now, what New York does is, if an applicant comes in and they have a work authorization for 30 days, 60 days, 1 year, New York automatically issues them an 8-year commercial driver's license. That's contrary to the law. That's one offense. But we also found that New York many times won't even verify whether they have a work authorization, they have a visa, or they're in the country legally. So they're just giving 8-year commercial driver's licenses to people who are coming through their DMV and sending them out on American roadways. And again, they're indeed.
Duffy gave New York 30 days to adhere to federal regulations. If the state fails to comply, the transportation secretary threatened to pull more than $70 million in federal highway funding. Administrator of Motor Carriers Derek Bars said New York has 32,000 active non-domiciled CDLs. Bars called New York's policies a, quote, systematically grossly unacceptable deviation from a federal safety regulation that has been on the books for a long period of time. New York DMV defends the state's practices, saying it has been complying with federal rules. Duffy has threatened to withhold millions from California, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota after audits found similar issues. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is back in the news. A federal judge today ruled that immigration officials could not detain him. The decision came just hours after his release from immigration detention. Here's more.
Abrego Garcia appeared today for a scheduled appointment at an ICE field office. The judge says officials cannot re-detain him until the court conducts a hearing on the motion for the temporary restraining order. Abrego Garcia said he will continue to fight and stand firm against what he called the injustices the government has done to him. Garcia entered the U.S. illegally as a teenager. He currently faces federal charges of human smuggling and conspiracy to commit human smuggling in Tennessee. He has pleaded not guilty to these charges. The Department of Homeland Security says police validated that he's a member of the MS-13 gang in 2019.
Hundreds of illegal immigrants arrested in the Chicago area will remain in custody. A federal appeals court continued a pause on their release. Last month, the lower court judge ordered hundreds of detainees to be released on $1,500 bonds. He ruled the government violated a consent decree banning warrantless immigration arrests. A federal appeals court later blocked their release just one day before they could have left detention. During oral arguments last week, the Trump administration suggested people are being released separately in their own cases and requested the pause. The request was granted, pending appeal. And artificial intelligence is in the spotlight. President Trump signing an executive order yesterday that would prevent states from putting limits on the industry. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the move, which seeks to establish a federal standard on regulating AI companies.
The order is titled Ensuring a National Policy Framework for Artificial Intelligence. It aims to create a national standard on AI regulations that would forbid any state laws from going beyond its framework and challenge them through the Department of Justice.
When they need approvals on things, they have to come to one source. They can't go to California, New York, and various other places like Illinois.
Trump says AI is a big part of the economy, and there's only going to be one winner.
That's probably going to be the U.S. or China, and right now we're winning by a lot. China has a central source of approval. I don't think they have any approval. They just go and build.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggested China would outpace the United States in innovation if the federal government allowed states to enact their own rules.
This is the biggest technological innovation in our country's history. We've seen the canals, we've seen the railroads, we've seen the utilities, we've seen the build out of the internet and the fiber, and now it's AI, and it is pass-fail versus China. We have the lead, we've got to maintain it.
President Trump's order says the national standard on AI regulation should protect children, prevent censorship and copyright infringement, and safeguard communities.
President Trump also signed 5 laws overturning Biden-era restrictions on energy leasing across millions of acres.
The states impacted include North Dakota, Montana, Alaska, and Wyoming. Trump signed an executive order yesterday directing the SEC to review rules governing proxy advisors, the firms that guide shareholder voting. Trump singled out 2 foreign-owned proxy advisors, Institutional Shareholder Services and Glass Lewis & Company, that advise clients on how to vote their shares. The president says they use their influence to advance, quote, radical politically motivated agendas by supporting shareholder proposals that require U.S. companies to conduct racial equity audits and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And President Trump also announced yesterday he's pardoning former Colorado County Clerk Tina Peters, who was convicted of election machine tampering following the 2020 election. Peters was sentenced in August 2024 to 9 years in state prison for allowing unauthorized access to voting machines. Peters previously said her efforts were aimed at upholding election integrity. But the presidential pardon appears to be symbolic. Governor Jared Polis and Attorney General Phil Weiser pointed out that the president can only pardon federal offenses, not crimes tried and convicted under state law.
President Trump called Peters a patriot and said she's incarcerated in a Colorado prison for the crime of demanding honest elections. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
President Trump is taking aim at ESG, or environmental, social, and governance agendas. He signed an executive order to review foreign proxy advisors. He says these advisors hold big sway over American corporations and even Americans' retirement accounts. Trump has determined the advisors are acting on radical ideas and are politically motivated and are not solely concerned with maximizing investor returns, which he said should be the top priority. One of the firms responded to the order, telling media they work for institutional investors independently. Let's look at the impacts of this with Diana Furchtgott-Roth, Director of the Center for Energy, Climate, and Environment at the Heritage Foundation. Thank you for your time, Diana. This is what we're talking about, Institutional Shareholder Services Incorporated and Glass Lewis & Company, LLC. What do they do? And are they affecting Americans' financial bottom line positively or negatively?
What they do is they collect proxy votes and they advise shareholders on how to vote. So those of our listeners who have shares might find that they get something in the mail from, which is a question on how they want to vote on a particular matter affecting the company. And what Glass Lewis and ISS do is make recommendations. The problem is that sometimes their recommendations are not aligned with the best interests of the company. In particular, they're very much focused on environmental, social governance. They have climate transition plans that they often recommend against the advice of the board. And that means that these firms get driven in a different direction from what is most profitable for them. And that's against the interests of the shareholders, because shareholders want profitable firms. They don't want firms that lose money.
Understood. Now, what good can come from these reviews that the Securities and Exchange Commission is now ordered to carry out, including rules, regulations, guidance, bulletins, memos?
Well, it's the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Labor Department. So all three can decide that other proxy advisory firms should be allowed in. I have always been puzzled why this market was just allocated to ISS and Glass Lewis. There should be a number of other companies that are approved to collect these proxy votes. And the Federal Trade Commission in particular will be looking at evidence of antitrust violations, that these two groups basically colluded to take this business and have the same standards, and also that these standards are not in the interests of the American people, they're not in the interests of the firms, and they are foreign-owned. They're owned by Canada and Germany. So these are countries that are propelling an environmentalist agenda, and this agenda is being reflected on the choices American shareholders have.
Thank you for explaining that, Diana. And at the same time, we've seen allegations that these ESG policies are costing Americans big bucks by not going with the cheapest energy policies, or even leading to some called indoctrination of employees being forced to take courses, training courses they call them, that don't align with the common knowledge of just how you should normally interact with people. But broadly speaking, how does this new push from the Trump administration fit in with broader efforts to dismantle ESG, and how successful could it be?
Well, it could potentially be very successful if other firms are allowed in to collect these proxy votes, and if other firms reflect the preferences of the board. The ultimate challenge for any organization is choosing the best policies and the best qualified people. You don't want to choose on the basis of affirmative action. You want the most qualified workforce that you have. And you don't want to choose on the basis of political correctness. You want to have the least expensive, most reliable fuel. That is going to make your company get further ahead than if they endorse renewables that might cost the firm more, both in the short and the long run. So this could have very positive effects on firm governance and the American economy, and shareholders' wallets. Those of our listeners who own shares know that they want them to grow as fast as possible. That means the most qualified people, the least expensive sources of energy, and the best policies.
So interesting how this is turning into something political. I mean, it depends on who you ask. If you ask certain people who are not the federal government, they might say that coal isn't that much cheaper than, say, solar or wind power. Where if you ask the government, and they're pretty reliable, they say no, coal is much cheaper. So it's all a big mix. And then the issue of, well, if you get these renewables, where are the solar panels coming from? China. So you're enriching a genocidal regime. It's just something y'all have to weigh when you go about this. Now, you mentioned the FTC and their antitrust investigations, these proxy advisors, and you mentioned that this may be happening. Now, how would that impact Americans if it is?
What it would do is it would give American shareholders a broader choice. It would mean that the boards of these companies can rely on shareholders having the most accurate information when it comes to votes, instead of being prejudiced by foreign-owned proxy companies. And I think that that's very important. And in terms of renewables, we know that they're weakening the electricity grid and driving up prices, because in terms of high electricity prices, 9 out of the top 10 states in electricity prices require renewables. 9 out of the bottom 10 states in electricity prices do not require renewables, and it's a difference of 3 to 1, about 11 cents an hour in Utah, about 32 cents an hour in California. And we know what people like, low electricity prices, because that's better on their wallets.
It's so important to pay attention to what you're saying, and we know that Americans do not like foreigners interfering with their elections, their 401ks, their corporations. That's why this is big news here. Now, have we seen any of these racial equity audits or a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from large American corporations or investment firms that may be tied to these proxy advisors?
I think it's very clear that when proxy advisors have ESG themes and climate transition themes that they're trying to push, then that prejudices them against using America's oil and natural gas because they're biased against those sources of energy. But Americans want low electricity prices, not high electricity prices. And many communities are turning down what they see as ugly wind turbines and ugly solar panels. 70% of wind turbines, solar panels, and batteries are made in China, and China subsidizes these to undercut American and European producers. So we don't want proxy advisory firms that are lobbying essentially on behalf of China.
Very, very important to note, and interesting that you bring that up. And if they're avoiding American energy, and if it's oil, it might be Iranian oil that's being produced in order to fill the gap, which may not be environmentally created, and it may just be fueling a state sponsor of terrorism. So that's pretty clear that that's not in the American interest. Now, when you look at the Trump administration, how is it going about uprooting and exposing all these things? Is it using the correct legal avenues, and is it doing enough?
President Trump is asking 3 agencies, the Securities and Exchange Commission that deals with stocks, the Labor Department that deals with pension funds, and the Federal Trade Commission that deals with collusion, to look at this. And each of these agencies is going to take a look and see what they come up with and see what their conclusion is. I have always found it puzzling that it is just these 2 entities, Glass Lewis and ISS, that are so prevalent, that have the advantage in collecting these proxy votes when they are so biased in terms of environmentalism and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because what we need is the lowest cost energy, and we need the most qualified people, no matter what their race or color.
It is fascinating to think about the complexities of the big picture here. Thank you for that insight. I mean, how an American's take-home pay and their actual bottom line can be affected by someone who doesn't vote in this country, who's not even within the American jurisdiction at all. Diana Furchtgott-Roth, we appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Stay with us. 2 lawsuits targeting Wisconsin's congressional map advanced today. This as newly formed 3-judge panels meet for the first time. We'll have that and more after the break.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits 0, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back in stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem touting the Trump administration's achievements on border security. She's delivering a keynote address at the annual Homeland Security and Defense Forum Border Security Symposium.
We've just reached our 7th month of 0 illegal aliens released into our streets. Border crossings are down over 93% year over year. Meanwhile, we're removing illegal aliens who came in under the Biden administration. By the end of this year, 2.5 million illegal aliens will have left our country. That includes over 600,000 that were detained and deported, but 1.9 million virtually have left voluntarily through our communication efforts.
The secretary says that from January to November, ICE alone arrested and removed over 1,100 known or suspected terrorists on the U.S. terrorist watch list. During the same time, the U.S. Coast Guard seized enough cocaine to kill 177 million Americans. That's 2/3 of the U.S. population. She also says fentanyl traffic at the southern border is down 56%. Noem promises to keep America safe and thanks DHS personnel and border agents for making that happen. And federal prosecutors have charged the executive director of Black Lives Matter Oklahoma City with wire fraud and money laundering. FBI Director Kash Patel wrote on X that Tashella Dickerson allegedly used her position to steal donor money and enrich herself. Here's more.
Dickerson is accused of diverting more than $3 million in returned bail checks into her personal bank accounts between 2020 and 2025. The money was intended for bail assistance and social justice programs, but investigators say it was instead spent on international travel, retail shopping, and over $50,000 in food deliveries, a vehicle, and 6 properties. BML Oklahoma City reportedly raised over $5.5 million beginning in 2020. A federal grand jury returned 25 counts against Dickerson, 20 for wire fraud and 5 for money laundering. She faces up to 20 years per fraud count if convicted. Dickerson said yesterday that she cannot make an official comment on the situation, but said she is safe at home and has confidence in her team.
2 lawsuits challenging Wisconsin's congressional maps move forward today. This as 2 newly formed 3-judge panels met for the first time. Both suits argue Wisconsin's 8 districts, 6 currently held by Republicans, are unconstitutionally drawn to favor the GOP. Any final panel rulings can be appealed to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. The fight comes as President Trump works to maintain Republicans' narrow advantage in the U.S. House before next year's elections. Indiana state senators vote down a new congressional map that would have likely given Republicans 2 more seats in Congress. It's the first red state to oppose President Trump's nationwide redistricting push. NTD's Melina Weiskup reports.
Some Republican state senators in Indiana say they support the president, but not his push to get red states to redraw congressional lines.
And you know what? I voted for him 3 times. I like a lot of the things he's done. I didn't like this.
On Thursday, Indiana senators tanked a bill that would have likely given Republicans 2 more seats in the U.S. Congress.
19 ayes, 31 noes. This bill has been defeated. No, please stay quiet in gallery. Thank you.
21 state Republicans voted with Democrats to reject the new map, some citing pushback from their constituents.
Splitting these counties into separate congressional districts, I believe, creates confusion and barriers to cooperation.
While those who supported the GOP-favored congressional map honed in on what they described as an unfair playing field nationwide.
Look how they drew those maps. They want you to play by a different set of rules than what they're willing to play by. And we're getting diluted by the Democrats and what they're doing in these other states.
Following the vote, the president and state governor reacted with disappointment, warning those who voted no that they'll face tough primaries.
I'm sure that whenever his primary is, it's I think in 2 years, but I'm sure he'll go down. He'll go down. I'll certainly support anybody that wants to go against him. I won Indiana all 3 times by a landslide, and I wasn't working on it very hard. Would have been nice. I think we would.
Governor Braun wrote on X, "Decisions like this carry political consequences. I will be working with the president to challenge these people who do not represent the best interests of Hoosiers." Indiana is the first red state to reject President Trump's redistricting push. Despite the loss, U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson is confident Republicans will keep the majority.
Whatever the maps are that are presented by every state, I have to win those, and we will. So I guess that's a disappointing outcome in Indiana. But
Missouri, North Carolina, and Texas have already secured GOP-favored maps, and several other states are working through the process. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
The House has blocked an impeachment attempt against President Trump. Lawmakers voted 237 to 140 yesterday to set aside the measure. Here's more.
The resolution came from Congressman Al Green, his second attempt this year. He accused Trump of threatening federal judges and denounced Trump's comments criticizing members of Congress who called on service members to disobey what they called illegal orders. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and his leadership team said in a statement before the vote that impeachment demands a thorough investigative process. The lawmakers argued the Republican majority had not carried out that process. Still, Democratic Party leaders stopped short of formally opposing the resolution and chose instead to vote present. In total, 47 Democrats cast present votes. Republicans dismissed the effort as a distraction and warned Democrats would try to impeach Trump a third time if they take control of the House next year.
In a rare bipartisan move, House lawmakers approved a bill to restore collective bargaining rights for nearly 1 million federal employees. The vote was 231 to 195. The first time this term the House has acted to overturn one of President Trump's executive orders.
A government that serves the people must also respect the rights of those who serve within it.
20 Republicans joined Democrats to advance the measure, which now heads to the Senate. The bill would undo a March executive order that ended collective bargaining at several federal agencies connected to national security. The Trump administration said the unions had obstructed its agenda, citing authority under the Civil Service Reform Act. The Senate has not yet indicated when it might take up the legislation. More than 18,000 Amtrak workers are getting a Christmas bonus. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy made the announcement following a record year of ridership and revenue. Duffy said Amtrak's executives decided to forego 50% of their bonuses to pay the employees. In the announcement, Duffy touted what he called a golden age of travel. He said in a statement, quote, "We rely on our incredible workforce, including our unionized workers at Amtrak, to make it all possible." According to its annual report, Amtrak set all-time records in 2025 with over $2.7 billion in ticket revenue from 34.5 million riders. Authorities in Queens, New York say they've dismantled a multi-state retail theft ring targeting Home Depot. They're calling it the largest case of its kind. Investigators allege the crew stole more than $2 million in tools and building supplies during more than 300 incidents at 128 Home Depot locations. 13 defendants are now charged in a sweeping 780-count indictment that outlines an organized operation stretching across 9 states. Prosecutors say the crew met almost daily and targeted stores using online inventories. New York Governor Kathy Hochul yesterday credited stronger larceny laws with helping investigators take down the ring, turning cases from misdemeanors to felonies. Police are still searching for one suspect. The defendants face up to 25 years in prison if convicted. Heavy rain has caused severe flooding in the Pacific Northwest. To put it in perspective, think of the average ceiling in a house. The water in Sumas, Washington, near Vancouver, rose higher than that in some areas. Today, the rain is letting up in the region, but some rivers are still rising. Here are the details.
The situation is potentially catastrophic.
Forecasters warn historic floods in Washington state could be deadly if people don't stick to evacuation orders. They say rivers have continued to rise, flooding homes and businesses. This rescue video is from the Snohomish River outside Seattle. The Skagit River is threatening populated areas farther north.
As long as we've been recording the river, it's never gone this high in those areas, so we're deeply concerned.
Officials say if levees fail, the property damage could be immense.
If the levees hold, which at this point in time they're solid, not saturated, we'll be okay. If they let go, the losses can be in the hundreds of millions.
Meanwhile, south of Seattle,
it probably won't help much, but every little bit.
This man says he helped evacuate an RV park when the Cowlitz River rose.
There was no water, and the second trip he stepped into the water, and then I come down in there and we loaded him out and got him out of there.
In other places across the state,
it's a dangerous situation.
More communities are grappling with high water.
It's sad to see that people's homes are filled with water and potentially have to move out and start again.
Officials hope various flood control efforts keep up and keep people safe.
Folks are scared right now, and there's good reason to be scared because, these rivers, we do multiple swiftwater rescues a year that can be very dangerous.
Coming up, want to be healthier, maybe lose some pounds? Have you thought of the Maha lifestyle? It might help. Why? Because a reporter on that beat tried it, and it gave him 65 benefits. Hear about it. And Congress is introducing a new bill to phase out Chinese LiDAR technology in the coming years over national security risks. We'll unpack what's in the proposal after the break.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School. College first-round draft pick, on and off the field. We were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Hi there. On to health. The Make America Healthy Again movement, inspired by RFK Jr., is all about reducing inflation, cutting out the processed food, and getting moving. But does it work? We have one striking example that it surely does. A man with deep knowledge of this movement wholeheartedly gave it a shot. He lost 65 pounds, and he's here to tell us about it. Please welcome Jeff Louderback, The Epic Times. Hi, Jeff. You're the reporter and the story. You've had many conversations with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and you knew what this Maha method was, but you said you still weren't ready to put it into action. Then you stepped on that scale. What was going through your mind at that point, and how did you decide to go all in?
Well, I started covering the RFK Jr. presidential campaign for the Epic Times from the beginning. I think that was April 2023. And much of my adult life, I'm in my mid-50s now, much of my adult life, I'd been in good shape. I'm a little over 6'4". I'd been around where I am now between 210 and 215 much of my life until about 2019. I just fell into some bad habits, and it snowballs. When you lose momentum, it can snowball. And literally, I like to say that I ballooned up to 278. And I didn't realize it. When you're tall, a lot of times you can't really tell what you weigh, or you can't really tell when you're immersed in your life and you're not focused on healthy habits. you don't really know that what you weigh, and you can't really tell how out of shape you are. I'm looking at those photos. That photo on the left, I was covering Hurricane Helene in Western North Carolina for the Epic Times, and I didn't realize it until April 2023, and then RFK Jr. decided to leave the race August 23rd of 2024, and that's when the term Maha was built. It wasn't until I shifted to the Maha, covering the Maha movement. It was around probably early May, I stepped on the scale. I lived down here in Southern Ohio at a local gym, stepped on the scale, and it said 278. And I was like, wow, I just had never weighed that much in my life. I knew I wasn't in great shape. I knew I was in bad habits and wasn't doing what I should. I knew what I should be doing, but wasn't doing it. And then, of course, when you're traveling around the country covering RFK Jr., you hear about sourcing foods, knowing where your foods come from and chemicals in foods. And of course, RFK Jr. himself, the guy's 71 years old, and he's in better physical shape than most people in their 20s and 30s. So I wasn't living the lifestyle, but it kicked in May. And I wrote in the story on the Epic Times, it had a lot to do with my faith, because I'm a Christ follower, and I've really renewed my faith over the last year. And part of being a Christ follower is taking care of the body God's given you. And I wasn't doing that. And across the board with my faith and my Maha passion, it caused me to take action.
So, I mean, Jeff, you look different. Really, we've spoken many times. You've done a lot of great political reporting, I'm sure other reports. This one is a really great, deep investigative piece that you've put together here. Now, overall, was it hard to adopt the Maha lifestyle? And if so, was there one specific part that was the hardest?
Well, another thing I wrote is we live in a society where there's all sorts of quick fixes, like you have Ozempic and the other weight loss drugs. You have all these pills that promise you take this pill, you don't have to change your lifestyle, you're going to get shredded and lose weight. But there's no such thing. The bottom line is what the Maha movement, part of it is all about: whole foods, herbs, knowing where your food comes from, knowing how it's raised, locally sourcing foods instead of getting them from the grocery store, because I'm a journalist. I can't pronounce or spell half the ingredients in most foods on the grocery store shelves. And it's changing a mindset. I also, in that article, used I'm a sports fan, as you can see in the background. You know, like in Major League Baseball, when the Red Sox are on a losing streak, they can't stop it until they win one game. And then you can't start building momentum until you get a second or third win in a row, and then you have a streak going. That's really applies to wellness, because you're not going to lose the weight overnight. I say to give yourself a season, which is 3 months. Start incorporating those habits, whole foods and herbs, fully eliminating processed foods. That's what I did. And if you don't feel you can do that, at least dramatically reduce it. Minimize sugar. And of course, exercise is part of that. But I did it mostly I'm back to high intensity interval training exercises and more weight training. But from May to November, when I lost the 65 pounds and now I'm maintaining it, the 210 to 215 weight range, it was all about eliminating the whole foods and herbs. I mean, focusing on whole foods and herbs, eliminating processed foods, and knowing where my food comes from, and doing a lot of walking and hiking. That photo on the right there was taken at a nature preserve down here in Southern Ohio. That's important. So you can't out-train a bad diet, but you can, if you focus on pro-Maha principles, you can get to where you want to be.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, that's about 10 pounds a month or just over that. I mean, congratulations. So what advice do you have for people that are considering a change in diet?
Well, I don't like the word diet. That implies something short-term. It's a lifestyle. It's something sustainable. A diet isn't sustainable, but a lifestyle is long-term sustainable. And it's understanding that, again, and you can do it. You know, I live down here in Amish country in southern Ohio in the Appalachian foothills. I lived in cities and suburbs all my life until 2 years ago. And I'm growing microgreens. I'm learning how to use the tower garden and grow herbs myself. But what I don't grow, I source it down here from local farmers, whether it's meat, eggs, produce, herbs. So it's understanding not only where you get what you eat, but where you get it from. And because it's important, you can even get produce in the grocery store and meat in the grocery store that's not healthy for you because of chemicals in it. So it's understanding the local sourcing. That's pretty much what I like to say, to focus on that.
Growing it yourself, I mean, what's more local than that? Now, okay, 2 questions. One, just briefly, do you do the microgreens in the trays or do you do them in the jars? And then also, you mentioned your faith, herbs, and knowing your food and intermittent fasting. Tell us about this holistic approach and how it all works together.
As far as the microgreens, I got to restart that this winter because I harvested microgreens it was about 2 months ago, the last of my microgreens, and I haven't restarted it, but that's for the winter. I'm doing that and restarting my tower garden where I could grow vegetables and herbs inside, because down here it's supposed to be 1 degree on Sunday down here, so obviously not conducive for outdoor growing. As far as the faith, it all goes hand in hand, I think. I think faith and sustainable living go hand in hand. God has given us all we need to heal ourselves and to have what we need. So there's plenty of farmers now. I'm actually, I took a break to do this interview. I'm finishing a story on regenerative farmers' reaction to the news a couple days ago that the USDA is allocating $700 million for regenerative farming. So it's knowing how your food is raised, where you get it from, and understanding that we have what we need to heal ourselves and to keep ourselves healthy. It's not, the answer isn't a pill. The answer isn't over-the-counter medication to heal. I firmly believe in the holistic approach and understanding what God has given us.
You can only imagine that these big pharma companies that push out Ozempic and whatever else, these obesity pills, they probably don't like the Maha movement like all that much, you can imagine. Now back to you. Of course, losing 65 pounds has many health benefits, probably much easier on the joints, better blood pressure, I'm sure. How do you feel?
Well, again, this is not something new to me because I had been in good shape, the shape I like to be in back as late as probably like 2019, 2020. I just got out of bad habits. And it's about the mindset. When you're in the right mindset, you accomplish goals and you feel great. Like that photo right there on the left, I wasn't in the right mindset. I was, when you're traveling too, as you know, being in the media, when you're on the road, I was on the road all 28 states covering RFK Jr. And right there was Hurricane Helene in Western North Carolina. When you're on deadline, it's easy to stop at a fast food place and it's easy to eat poorly. And it's all about being in the right mindset. And faith has a lot to do with that because it's sustainable when you know your purpose. And I know my purpose now with my renewed faith. And then I know how good it feels good to feel good. I've written about that on social media. And because I'm in the right mindset and have the right purpose, it's sustainable.
Now, Jeff, candidly, did your faith help you with the diet, or did your diet help improve your faith, or both?
I think it was both, but I'm a firm believer. I've been a Christ follower or believer my whole life, but it's different. It's different being a Christ believer and a Christ follower. So when you're a follower, you're leading, you're abiding by biblical principles and values, and really biblical principles and values go hand in hand with Make America Healthy Again. So, I mean, that's important. So that's what's inspired me to to get it started and to keep my momentum, because you need willpower and discipline, especially when you're doing a fast, because fasting has a lot of benefits beyond. Really, fasting is not about weight loss and fat loss. It's about regenerating cells and generating ketones, so among others. So willpower and discipline for me come from God, not myself.
So fascinating, Jeff. You know, I used to wrestle in high school and we cut weight. I don't recommend it, but that is hard. So I can imagine that, you know, you really stuck to it. That's good on you. Now, from your firsthand perspective, do you believe that if a large portion of Americans took up the Maha way of life, that it could go a long way in solving the chronic disease epidemic in this country?
Yeah, I think that's common sense, really, removing chemicals from food, knowing where your food comes from, eliminating processed foods, because there's nothing. I had to laugh because I saw, I think today or yesterday, that Oreos are no longer going to have sugar in them, or there's going to be a non-sugar version. But still, that's, as I think it was Dr. Mark Hyman pointed out, that's still ultra-processed food because artificial sweeteners aren't good for you. So, again, you know, if you exercise and you focus on herbs and whole foods and minimize sugar, good things are going to happen.
Incredible. Well, Jeff Louderback, thank you for coming on and sharing your firsthand experience with the Maha lifestyle with us.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, Congress is introducing a new bill to phase out Chinese LiDAR technology in the coming years over national security risks. We'll unpack what's in the proposal in a moment.